The mountain did not forgive easily. It rose from the earth like an old scar, jagged and silent, wrapped in fog that moved like breath across its shoulders. Most people felt small when they looked at it. Some felt fear. Others felt greed. But for one man, standing alone at the rusted gate at dawn, the mountain felt like a final chance to breathe without flinching. He had seen too much of the world through a rifle scope, too much life reduced to distance and calculation, and he had come here not to conquer anything, but to disappear. He believed that if he could own a place untouched by noise and cruelty, maybe the noise inside his own head would finally quiet down. Before the story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that even broken people can choose a better path, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to channel name. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them most. The man's name no longer mattered to the world. Record still held it somewhere, ink fading on forms stamped years ago, but up here he was just another shadow among trees. Once, he had been trained to wait for hours without moving, to slow his breathing until it nearly vanished, to separate emotion from action. He had been praised for precision, for control, for doing what others could not. And when the war ended and the applause faded, he returned home carrying memories heavier than any pack he had ever worn. Cities felt too loud. People felt too close. Every sudden sound pulled him back into places he had sworn never to revisit. So he bought the mountain. It was remote enough that maps barely bothered to name it, a long stretch of forest and rock that had been passed from one failing owner to another. There was no luxury here, no wide roads or bright lights, only an old cabin leaning into the wind and a fence line that cut across the lower slope like a tired boundary. He paid cash, signed the papers, and watched the previous owner drive away without looking back. When the dust settled, silence returned, deep and complete. The first weeks were brutal in their own quiet way. The cabin leaked when it rained, the generator coughed like it might give up at any moment, and nights were so dark they felt endless. He chopped wood until his hands blistered, repaired walls with slow patience, and learned the sounds of the mountain. Whined through pine needles. Stones shifting under distant hooves. Birds calling warnings at dusk. For the first time in years, he slept without locking a door, trusting the isolation to protect him better than any alarm. But peace is fragile, especially where money and desperation meet. The signs came slowly. Broken branches where none should be. Shell casings glinting faintly near a stream. Once, he found a deer left where it fell, meat stripped hastily, the rest wasted. Poachers. Men who saw the mountain not as a living place, but as something to take from and abandon. Rangers rarely came this far, and everyone knew it. The isolation that had drawn him here had also made the land vulnerable. He repaired the fence, reinforcing it with posts sunk deeper into the soil. He put up clear warning signs, simple and firm. Private land. Protected wildlife. No trespassing. He hoped that would be enough. He wanted no trouble. He had not come here to fight anyone. But the mountain had its own history, and trouble has a way of testing even the strongest resolve. One cold morning, he found the fence cut clean through, wire bent back with careless confidence. Fresh boot prints crossed the line, heavy and unafraid. He followed them partway, then stopped, a familiar tightness settling into his chest. This was the moment where old instincts whispered, where the past reached up and tried to pull him back. He stood there for a long time, breathing slowly, reminding himself that he was no longer that man. Days passed, and the crossings continued. More animals vanished. The forest grew quieter in the wrong way, as if holding its breath. At night, distant engine noises drifted up the slope, then disappeared. He reported what he could, but help was slow, stretched thin by distance and bureaucracy. Meanwhile, the mountain suffered. What the poachers did not know was that the man they dismissed as a harmless recluse had once survived places where mistakes cost lives. He knew terrain the way others knew streets. He knew how people moved when they thought no one was watching. And more importantly, he knew restraint. He knew exactly how far not to go. Instead of reacting with force, he observed. He repaired the fence again, this time quietly altering the land around it. He restored old trails, guided animal movement away from danger, and placed unobtrusive markers that only someone trained to read ground and shadow would notice. He documented everything with care, building a case stronger than anger ever could be. As weeks turned into months, something unexpected happened. The mountain began to heal, and so did he. He found purpose not in defending territory, but in protecting life. He learned the habits of the animals, the paths they favored, the seasons they depended on. He began leaving water in dry months, clearing fallen debris after storms. He stopped seeing himself as an owner and started seeing himself as a guardian. The poachers grew careless. They crossed the fence more often, confident that no one would challenge them. And then, one by one, they stopped coming. There were no dramatic confrontations, no violence whispered about in nearby towns. Instead, there were quiet consequences. Trucks seized after being linked to illegal kills. Arrests made far from the mountain, based on evidence that seemed to appear from nowhere. Trails shut down, networks exposed. The men who had treated the forest like a resource to be stripped found themselves facing the weight of the law, the kind that does not forget or forgive easily. Word spread, as it always does, but the stories changed as they traveled. Some said the mountain was cursed. Others claimed it was watched by something that never slept. The truth was simpler and far more powerful. Someone cared enough to stand between greed and silence, and he did it without becoming the very thing he was trying to escape. Seasons turned. Snow buried the fence, then melted away. New growth filled old scars. The forest grew loud again with life. And the man, once defined by what he had taken from the world, was now defined by what he protected. He still had nights when sleep was hard to find. Memories do not vanish just because scenery changes. But now, when dawn broke over the peaks, it brought more than just light. It brought the sound of birds returning, the sight of animals moving freely, the knowledge that his presence here mattered in a way that did not require destruction. He began helping from a distance, working with conservation groups, sharing what he knew about terrain and tracking in ways that saved lives instead of ending them. He never sought credit. He never told his full story. The mountain knew it, and that was enough. Near the end of his first year, he stood again at the fence line, watching the mist lift. The wire was intact. The ground beyond it undisturbed. He rested his hand on the weathered post and felt something unfamiliar settle into his chest. Not pride. Not victory. Peace. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that redemption can be quiet and strength can look like restraint, please take a moment now to like this video, share it, and subscribe to channel name. Your engagement helps keep meaningful stories alive.